The second was the realization that I had put a lot of time into preparing to meet him. It wasn't long before Dr. Vincent got on the phone to the drug company that produced the purple pills to order a gallon jug. It lets you take greater risks and achieve far more than you ever thought possible. Ebonite is hard and brittle, so that while rubbing it too hard could damage the material, rubbing it lightly took a great deal of time. Even among bird species that do not commonly use objects as tools, occasional creative individuals do. Distant pastures always look greener than those close at hand, but real opportunities are right where you are. Please let me know what you are willing to donate by completing the attached form and faxing it back to me by July 1, 2017. Near the top of one of the highest peaks in the Rocky Mountain Range, more than 10,000 feet above sea level, are two natural springs. When it came time for him to unburden himself, he knew that his was one of the saddest stories there. Americans have both a desire for new goods and services and the money to buy them. Meanwhile, the government men are searching for the alien who they know was left behind. He is revived, however, when put into a decompression chamber with the boy who found him. She's probably still conscious and conforming to what others in her environment deem appropriate. Being in the shadow economy means avoiding taxes. But it also means missing out on any help from the state. Unable to use laws of contract, they deal only with people whose reputation they know. It is possible that someone who is content with the amount of money he has might also be content with an even larger amount of money. This is why it is so important for parents to instill open-mindedness in their children from an early age. Intellectually, play lets a child take in new information and manipulate it to fit in with what he or she already knows. set high standards for membership and participation, and you'll be more likely to achieve better results. Teachers, nurses, and social workers all have excessive demands made on them by others. Dogs taught that they cannot escape shocks while confined will learn a sense of helplessness. Many wild animals are believed to demonstrate the phenomenon of telepathy or thought transference. There was, he said, a certain measure of proof that a number of Africans and lions were living together in the remote Singida province. Matching rewards to employee needs is one way to make certain that the incentives you provide get the results you want to achieve. During meditation classes, he always kept the cat by his side, in order to enjoy its company as much as possible. A university professor developed a thesis that a cat had the ability to increase human concentration and to eliminate negative energy. Since he was a gifted teacher, the students continued to make progress, despite the cat's absence. The cat died, but the students at the monastery were so used to it that they acquired another cat. You start out hating everything you're writing, and end up blinded by love for every word you've put on paper, or the other way around. Examining the present populations of the globe, we find a tiny group who still live, hunting and food foraging, as men did millennia ago. It is hardly strange that to the boy the delay seems 3 or 4 times longer than to the father. There were big differences in how the corporate leaders communicated after the scary announcement. Sometimes we need to have the truth exaggerated and made more dramatic, even fantastic, in order to comprehend it. Instead, we rigorously hold on to some outmoded form, one that once was needed, but that long ago was bypassed by technology. Normally, a district attorney is seen as better informed and more prestigious than a criminal, and therefore as more persuasive. By watching how someone's parents treat her and how she treats them, you can get a good feel for how she's likely to treat others. More and more, I find myself hiding behind email to do a job meant for a conversation. To test their hypothesis, the scientists allowed 84 dogs to observe, one by one, food-sharing interactions between humans. When the beggar asked for a bite, one of the sausage keepers rejected her, saying no and flicking one hand. During periods of inflation, gold has been one of the only investments to keep pace with rising prices. Refusing requests can free you to do the things that will help you to succeed and move your organization forward. He defined it as the ability to understand and manage men and women, skills we all need to live well in the world. This concept lets us look beyond the individual to understand what actually transpires as people interact. In this way, you can connect every small thing you do to the larger picture, to a goal that keeps you motivated and energized. The slow drivers say they are above average in safety, while the fast ones say that they are above average in reflexes. Cognitive dissonance is always triggered by obvious evidence that you are not as beneficent and effective as you would like people to think. What will immediately surface in response to your most wild imaginings are what I call the yay buts. Jews, blacks, and anyone else who didn't fit the English mold faced discrimination, restrictive laws, and sometimes open hostility. A closer look at the character, though, will show you that he is not a conventional loan shark. These tendencies can inflame the anger of the hurt person, who, in contrast, may see an offense as bigger than it really is. We have words like million, billion and trillion for some of the large numbers, but not for every one that you might need to write down. We have a handy notation that writes 10 to the power of n to denote the number which is 1 followed by a naughts, so 1,000 is 10 to the power of 3. They proclaim a commitment to customer service, but let the factory ship less than perfect product to make the month's sales quota. Two kinds of things that fall from the clouds on a cold winter day are snowflakes and diamond dust. What appears to us as simultaneous is actually a kind of follow-your-neighbor behavior moving faster than the eye can see. This simple and readily tested observation, first published by Galileo, refuted Aristotle, who claimed that heavy things fall faster. We are left to wonder how people could have believed what they were told for 2 millennia without ever checking. Shouting, fuming, or leaning on the car horn won't make traffic begin to flow, the screen unlock, or keys materialize. Right-handers can try this quick test to discover if they tend to be more right than left-brained or vice versa. People who place their right thumb on top of their left thumb tend to be left-brain dominant, and are thus more verbal and analytical. Recent studies have suggested that what matters is not the number of social groups but the relations among them. And in writings on bilingual children the term dominance has been used in different ways. Others say it is the language in which the child is most proficient, but how is that to be measured? He cut his mouth and was bleeding heavily when his parents arrived on the scene, alerted by his cries of pain and fear. In the days of the earliest people, most of the land was covered with dense forests, with open meadows here and there. It might seem as if the animals were more equipped to survive than humans were. It matters not only what is there but also how much, where it is located, how accessible it is, and who is exposed. They may look pretty, but often the design and graphics, not the content that journalists and job buyers require, are in the forefront. European Union authorities are currently considering a ban on all genetically engineered foods containing antibiotic-resistant marker genes. In 1991, a man with a video camera taped a group of 4 white police officers severely beating an African American man, Rodney King. After viewing the tape, which was played repeatedly on national television, many Americans found this story hard to swallow. It's true that he had incredible players, but many people have had the resources to succeed and have not done so consistently. The number of unsuccessful people who come from successful parents is proof that genes have nothing to do with success. What if the powerful incentives created by private ownership were instead brought to bear on the rhino? I don't want to see young people being rebellious, but neither do I want to see them not care about what they feel is right. Seeking shelter, they moored their sloop at a dock owned by a man named Putnam, who lived in a house on an island in the lake. Driven by their insatiable greed into ever more crazy adventures, they exploited and deceived the natives at every turn. It was not until about 1600 BC when the chariot was invented that the maximum travel speed was raised to roughly 20 miles per hour, mile per hour. The Greeks considered it important to recognize, in children up to the 7th year, that the physical body holds a spirit being who has descended. Up until Dr. Zasloff asked that question, many scientists took for granted that a frog's wounds healed naturally and quickly without antibiotics. Growth may have been lacking, but at least financial instability was not a problem. It makes clear climate sense to ensure that your home is as well protected from the elements as possible. Any heat that escapes in winter, or cool air in summer, means that you'll have to waste more emissions. Acrobatics was confined to the circus, as were practically all spectacles of the body. Basing your life and decisions on anecdotal evidence means ignoring facts when these facts contradict your beliefs. Billy the Kid passed through the town in this time and, as all citizens were requested to, surrendered his firearms to the sheriff's deputy. Who would buy these magazines if they already had great bodies and all the consumer goods they wanted? By rights, Z should have become the dominant unknown variable, to balance the dominant known letter, A. Many consumers are willing to pay premium prices for organic foods, convinced that they are helping the earth and eating healthier. This is analogous to the experience many have after buying a new suit, when the salesperson suggests a new tie or shirt to go with the suit. A related item that adds to the purchase product's versatility is especially good for suggestion selling. In the United States, the value of individualism is translated into a legal system that focuses on the rights of the individual. The popular belief that the top salespeople are in it just for the money always turns out to be a misconception. Once he was able to see this object clearly, he let it go, affirming that it was now moving toward him. The best thing in all of this is what a diamond can teach us, that simplicity is beautiful. These players build a winning football team and, therefore, the university they belong to can obtain a good image. The clear waters of the Bahamas teem with many varieties of fish, and charter boats abound that will take visitors on fishing trips out of Nassau. Chris realized he would have to give the fish an assurance that they wouldn't be killed and that he was approaching them as a friend. Sometimes it happens voluntarily, other times after someone loses a job but decides to make it the start of a new relationship to work. The mayor and the police chief, who are running for re-election, crow, "The crime rate has been cut in half during our time in office."